I have taken the occasion to invite Sangeeta Bhadnagarji as a panel. Her book was one of the books that we had selected for this discussion, and this one was a book that I was an introduction to me of Lucknow and Awadhi cuisine, 𝗬𝗀 I read this book, the first edition of this book, around 15 years ago. Mr. Saxena and Mr. Sangeeta Bhatnagar had written this book, and this had lovely introduction to Awadhi cuisine with great photographs. So there are a number of Lucknow cookbooks that have come up now, but I think if there is one book that should be read and about the cuisine of Awadh, it is 𝗬𝗀 still.
Absolutely, Partha. I absolutely agree with you. Even I've had this book for the past 15 years, or I think so, if I'm not exaggerating. I can see the cover has changed now. I still have the old cover.
Yes,
and it's a treasured book which has been covered in brown paper and then in plastic and then, kept very, very securely. And there are bookmarks as to all the recipes that I've tried out of this book. And believe me, it's a fantastic book. Anybody who wants to try out Lucknow cuisine needs to have this book with them.
We are happy to introduce to the audience co-author of this book, Sangeeta Bhadnagarji. Just like Pankaj, she is not only a chef, she is an economist in her own right. She is a teacher in Lucknow. She was a teacher in Lucknow University. Sangeeta ji, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Partha. It's a great pleasure to join you today. And congratulations to Pankaj ji on her latest book. And I must tell you, I'm your fan. And I've seen your journey right from the time you won the MasterChef. And, we were biting our nails when the finals were on, and seeing you evolve into such a, brilliant, confident chef and teacher.
I have only one question to ask to Sangeeta ji. Out of all these recipes that you have given, which one is your favorite Awadhi cuisine and how? Why? How?
I would say the Sikh kebab, the kakori kebab as we call them, because no matter what we did at home, we could never master, the kakori kebabs. And then we had these cooks coming from kakori, and there was a Kalumia, and
I've heard of him.
We actually learned from the original chefs, and Chef Farooq, who's now actually he's retired and he's settled in Lucknow. He has a great repertoire of the. So I would say the kakori kebabs because of the tenderness and.
I do not want to sound casteist.
Yeah.
But in matters of cuisine, especially North Indian and Lucknow, Delhi cuisine, there is one Hindu cuisine, there is one Muslim cuisine, and then there is a Kayast cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kayast are considered to be the best cooks of North India.
I'm not casteist either, and we go back a long way to 𝗵𝗱𝗏. So we've dabbled a lot in cuisine. Actually, Kayasts were good cooks because Kayasts were, in the courts of the rulers of the Mughals. And so they imbibed a lot, and from the Mughals, they had their own Hindu heritage. So both of them combined, and the understanding of the spices, as Pankaj said, we also, the Kayast kitchen is also, very rich in tradition, and we eat well, let's say. We are very fond of cooking. If you have 100 rupees in the house, you would go and spend it on balai or, a kebab or something. Whereas, some other person would like to save like 50% of it for something else. But you just leave a Kayast in Lucknow, and then we just go berserk. When I visit Lucknow now, my suitcase is full of 𝗬𝗀𝗃 or the 𝗵𝗱𝗃 and packed food. If I don't travel with my family, I have to take back 𝗬𝗎s ki biryani and 𝗳𝗵𝗱𝗀𝗃 ke kulche. So,
for the audience, I was saying I was exchanging notes with Pankaj ji that what are the books that has influenced her most. But one book that whenever I have spoken to any chef in India has been recommended always by any chef in India is this book called Modern Cookery by 𝗕𝗵𝗱𝗂𝗍. This book has been almost like a Bible of Indian cookery for the last 50 years or so. You ask any chef, this book will always be in their library. So
Yes,
this is for
yes.
the audience also. Modern Cookery for Teaching and the Trade. This was published around more than 50 years ago, and it is the nearest to say a cook Bible for all Indian food. It's an encyclopedia. It has dictionary, it has recipes, it has concepts. Everything is in this book. So Pankaj, can you tell why this book is in the library of every chef of India?
I'll tell you why. Because this is a textbook of culinary arts. You understand? It's like you learn from your alphabets, from A, B, C, D, to writing your essays in this book. Okay? So this is, as you rightly said, it's a Bible. But more than that, because it's a textbook, it gives you very comprehensive knowledge about, the culinary arts. Understanding what cooking techniques are, understanding what spices are, understanding what getting everything together means, understanding how food is plated, presented, understanding different cuisines. It is all there in this book. So because this has been a textbook and it has been created like a textbook, that is why I guess it becomes the go-to book for anybody who wants to learn the basics and then move on to culinary, arts. I think that is why. Oh, har ke paas hoga. Anybody who's ever been to an IHM or a culinary college will definitely have this book in their library.
Yeah, but still, I do not think this book comes close to La Rose Gastronomique, which is the Bible of Western cooking.
But that is about. You must understand that the French cuisine is a very, I should say, beautifully crafted, catalogued, and meticulously written down, cuisine. Why it has not been possible for us to do that in India is because Indian cuisine is not just one cuisine. It's a bouquet of cuisines. How can you put down the entire, bouquet, the collection of Indian food into just one particular book or a category, or try and put it down or break it up? You can't. It's next to impossible. It's like as if we have 30 different cuisines in our country itself. So because there you're talking about only one particular cuisine, the French cuisine, which is now become a standard for Western cuisine, or let me say cooking for all over the world. That is why it is considered a Bible there. But for us, it's like we'll have to create, I think, around 30 or 50 different Bibles for ourselves.
The episode's name is from the library of the MasterChef. So I took the opportunity to look into what Pankaj Bhadouria's library holds. And there's two books that Pankaj told me about are Cooking Delights of the Maharajas and Cooking with Indian Masters by 𝗳𝗃𝗃. This is an edited book by 𝗳𝗃𝗃. Many people contributed to that.
Yes.
So the Cooking Delights of the Maharajas is a book written by the late Maharaja of Ceylon. It is a book which is referred often by many authors and cooking experts. It is again a book which has, I think, stood the test of time. It is almost 40 years old now. But if you look through this book, it is extraordinary. For a simple man, I know korma. There will be 8 kinds of kormas in this book. From korma asab-zahi to korma, all kinds of different slight differences from one dish to another. You, Pankaj, chose this book as one of your favorite books. So
yes, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. One is because of the collection of recipes in here, right? As the name suggests, it's Cooking Delights of the Maharaja. So Maharaja of Ceylon has taken recipes from almost all the royal families across India. So there is one from Kashmir as well, and then one from Baroda as well. So everywhere. But what I liked best about the book was how meticulously the book has been crafted, right? So you have all your spices, all your ingredients measured down to the gram, and then it's been recorded there. Because it's easy to say ki 2 chammach haldi, right? But my spoon and your spoon may vary in size. But then he's very precise about the quantities, and the instructions are very clear. And there are not just non-vegetarian delights as one would think, but there are a lot of vegetarian recipes also. And the variety of recipes. There's a meat ka, keema ka dahi bhalla also, right? So that is something so very unique in itself. And as you were talking about kormas, there is something called a 𝗵𝗱𝗀𝗵𝗱𝗀 also, which has been made on toothpicks. Tiny botis of meat put on skewers, toothpicks, and then cooked into a korma, which is again something I've repeated so often. I've made that so many times at home, and it is always a winner, always appreciated by everybody. The reason why I loved the book was, and again, I have also had the book for the past, I think it was long before MasterChef happened that I have bought this book. And the reason I love this book is simply because I knew I could recreate the recipe same every time I cooked it, for the simple reason it was so very clear in terms of how much and what needs to be done, So that's why I loved the book. I really, really love the book. And it's been there in my library for years and years now. And by the way, I have more than 100 books, cookery books in my library.
And the other book, the book which is edited by 𝗳𝗊𝗷, this Prashad.
Yes.
Prashad Cooking with Indian Masters. It has contributions from many authors, many master authors in this book.
Yes. Again, as it says, cooking with the masters. So here we have recipes which have been created by masters of the trade, There are names like Chef Ghulam Rasool that you will see there, and many others. So, and once again, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, everything is there. But this is again one of the oldest books that I own, because it came out at a time when there weren't so many cookery books available. And here was what I considered to be a treasure, And so I've tried out different recipes from this book. They always turned out very good. And what fascinated me was how there was a proper introduction to everything, to explain to you what it was all about. And of course, at that time, I remember seeing black and white pictures only. And
yes, it has only black and white pictures.
Because it's a purana book hai na wo. But then it gave you an idea also. But yes, again, that one book has stood the test of time for me. And it has always come out to be a winner whenever I cooked from the book. Always.
As we look into these old books, the pioneering books about food cooking, Maharaja Sailana's book or 𝗳𝗊𝗷𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗀 book, for many of us in our generation, when we grew up, when we were in college, the food writing was not so prevalent. The one person, like him, don't like him, who actually introduced food writing to the mainstream food writing in newspapers and columns was वीर सांघवी.
Yeah.
The food column. We all have read this food column.
Yes.
Recently, this book has come, The Indian Pantry of वीर सांघवी, which is a curated collection of his root food articles. This is one book people may like to read. I have read it myself. It is a collection of his pieces, which has over the last 2 decades or so, the root food columns that has come in Hindustan Times over. I myself think he's a bit of a food snob, but I don't know if Pankaj would appreciate or agree with that. But my personal view was that. But at the end of the book, he comes out with a very interesting forecast of the days to come, which Pankaj touched in a conversation. That in the days to come, the regional varieties of Indian cuisine may get lost, and everything may become blended into one pan-Indian pantry, one pan-Indian cuisine. This is, I think, already happening. In our childhood days, every family used to have a different variety of cuisine. Every region used to have a different variety of cuisine. As people are going out to eat in restaurants, which is very good actually, because it is allowing a lot of women to work. and apart from other things. But I think the subtle differences between region to region, the regional, sub-regional cuisines, that might be getting lost. But I think it is fait accompli. That is what 𝗲𝗱 Sanghvi leaves the book with. So anybody who is interested in the 𝗲𝗱 Sanghvi kind of writing on food writings about avocados and how tomatoes are not Indian and how you cannot get good sausages in India.
I especially loved his piece about tomatoes and how he carries back tomatoes from Europe whenever he travels back. And you're absolutely right when you say that he's a food snob there.
But
so yes. And I had a good laugh when I read that piece, but yes, it was very, very interesting to read that.
Yeah, he does not find any good ingredients in India actually. So that is why I call him a food snob. But that apart, one very beautiful, but chefs are not only chefs. Many of them are very sensitive individuals, many sensitive authors, and in their own right. Pankaj herself is one. But one person whom we grew up with, who introduced us to Indian cuisine to the global world, is Madhu Jafari. Madhu Jafari was one of those pioneering women and pioneering chefs who introduced Indian cuisine to the globe. And she was also pioneering in the fashion that she started writing about this. She started making TV shows when there were no TV shows about Indian food.
True.
But this book of Madhu Jafari, Climbing the Mango Trees, is a memoir of her childhood days. It has recipes, it has food. Anything about Madhu Jafari has to have food. But it is also about a very delightful memoir of her growing up days in Delhi of Metcalfe House Civil Lines area. It also has a bit of Nainital, a bit of Kanpur. Anybody who not only wants to read about food, about cuisines, but also about the memories that food evokes, the memories that taste evokes, and the story of a Delhi which is pre-partition, pre-independence. This is a must-go book, Climbing the Mango Trees. I would seriously recommend anybody who's interested in not only cuisine, but about old Delhi and how the Delhi was at that time, must read this, Madhu Jafari's Climbing the Mango Trees. I just happened to pick up this book around a decade ago, and this has stayed with me. I don't know, Pankaj, whether you have got the chance to read this book.
I have. And
delightful book, I think.
It is. And what I loved about the book was how when you're reading the book, it seems you experience everything along with her, And so grandfather is not grandfather, or grandmother is Baua, and Buaji and Chacha, and how uncle's cousin has been named, and those little stories. So you become familiar with those characters and you recognize those characters, and you experience the whole childhood with her. And that's what I loved about the book. More than the recipes, it was her way of writing, her style, that impressed me more.
Yeah, it is a very evocative book. You actually feel like going to 7 Rajnaran Road in Old Delhi to find out.
I'm going and checking where this place is, yes.
So, I recently was watching a television show in Amazon Prime. And for the audience who are interested in any food-related TV shows, and there are many now, but one TV show about Indian food is Rick Steen's India. Rick Steen is one of my favorite TV personalities in terms of food TV programs. And in this Lucknow episode, Rick Steen actually meets Pankaj, and they go together to the fish market. They buy fish, and then Pankaj prepares a fish dish for the audience and for Rick Steen. Rick Steen in this entire program, I think it's a 6-episode program, is actually traveling through India in search of his the best curry in India. And Pankaj's fish curry was probably one of the best fish curries that Rick Steen tasted in that episode. So Pankaj, can you tell me about that experience of meeting Rick Steen and that episode, and Rick Steen in general?
Yes. So the initial conversation started about 3 months before Rick Steen actually came to the academy. And when we were, talking to each other over mails as to what needs to be done and what we could do and what I could share with him. So he was looking for the perfect curry. That was the whole idea. So I told him, I'm going to do a fish curry for you. So he says, but do you get sea fish there? I said, no, but we do get freshwater fish here. And when you come to Lucknow, you will notice how fish is a part of our emblem of the state, right? The Uttar Pradesh emblem has 2 fish in it. And that means fish holds some value for us over here. So you come and I'll take you around and I'll do a fish curry for you. So he was fascinated by the idea and he said, all right, we won't do a chicken curry, we'll do a fish curry for you. And so when he came, I invited him to the academy. And initially we went out to the fish market and we bought fish there. And one question that he asked me was, why doesn't this place not smell of fish? Like, when you go to fish market on the seaside, there is a particular, fishy smell that permeates everywhere. So I said, that's because we use freshwater fish, and what you get over here is freshwater fish, and that doesn't smell so much. And so he was fascinated by the idea. And then we bought some fish, we brought it back, and I did for him a dum machli, right? And for which I used silbatta to make my paste, and he was very fascinated with the silbatta. He was taking down meticulous notes of whatever I was doing. So he was such a delightful man to meet, and interested in every little thing, trying to understand everything, taking down meticulous notes of whatever I was telling him, trying to understand about the cuisine, trying to understand about the particular dish that I was doing. And then when I put it on dum, and he wanted to know why I was putting it on coal, and if coal would also impart a certain flavor, although the handi was sealed, would it also get a flavor? And then he realized that, yes, there is a slight hint of smokiness in the whole preparation. And he loved the dish. And I had also done a dal sultani for him, which was again something so very different and unique in the sense that, we were using a pan ka patta and smoking the dal with pan ka patta so that the arar ki dal acquires a very nice smoky flavor also. And not just that, but it also catches the flavor of the pan ka patta in itself. And in fact, he put that recipe in his book also, the dal sultani. And the fish, he was particularly, very impressed with the fish. And he even remarked that this is one of the finest cooking we've come across in our journey so far, which was very heartening and a real pleasure for me, because this was the last episode and this was the last part of his journey. So for him to say something like that after having traveled the entire country, that this is one of the finest, pieces of cooking I've come across. And it really, made me feel very proud of our Lucknow cuisine, because that is what I was representing there.
For people who do not know, Rick Stein is a celebrity British chef who started his journey through a seafood restaurant in North Cornwall in England, and has still since then moved on into TV shows, author of many books on food, and also has now owns and runs a number of restaurants, mainly in Padstow, but in other places also. Rick Stein's autobiography, a memoir, Under a Mackerel Sky, is a delight to read. I have just finished reading it around 10 days ago, because I was so interested after watching this Rick Stein's program, because he comes across somebody who is genuinely down to earth, genuinely curious, genuinely nice.
Yes, he is.
And despite being a celebrity chef, he meets everybody, in the show at least, as a genuinely down to earth person. This book, Rick Stein's Under a Mackerel Sky, takes you to the journey, through the journey of Rick Stein as a child, the childhood that he spent in Oxfordshire and Cornwall. Also, his rebellious youth days, his traveling through the Australian hinterlands, and then settling down, opening his first seafood restaurant, the struggles, and then only in the later part of the book, he is a master chef, or a celebrity chef, sorry. So this is if you want to read a memoir or a autobiography of a life of a chef, how different it can be, this is one book that I would really recommend you. Rick Steins' Under a Mackerel Sky. It's a delightful book to read for anyone, even if he is interested in food or if he is not interested in food. When we talk about the story of the Indian cuisine in the last 20-30 years, or we do see how we have connected now to the global scene. And many of the cuisines, global cuisines, are there in our kitchens and in our dining hall also. But the influence is, I think, probably more on the other direction. Indian cuisine has actually traveled throughout the globe. Anywhere you go, you will find an Indian restaurant with maybe indifferent taste, but you will find a curry house, any capital, any big city of the world.
Oh yes, that you will. That
you will find it. It may not be 𝗵𝗱𝗀𝗵𝗱, but there will be a Indian food, a 𝗵𝗱𝗶𝗀 or a Maharaja or a Himalaya or a Taj Mahal, maybe run by a Bangladeshi chef, but there will be cuisine everywhere. One book.
In fact, sorry to interrupt you, but you'll be surprised. When I was in London, I was invited to so many different so-called Indian restaurants, and I was surprised to discover 95% of the so-called Indian restaurants in London are owned by Bangladeshis and Pakistanis. Only 5% are authentic, or you would say asli wale Hindustani or Indian restaurants there. Only 5%. The rest are all owned by him.
But just like there is no one Indian cuisine, similarly, I don't think this Indian cuisine can also be limited by the political boundaries of this country.
Absolutely. We have been a subcontinent, and our cultures, our food, everything is so similar that it is different to, very difficult to distinguish. And it would be very wrong to, create barriers or allow these political barriers to somehow, come in the food map as well. I would definitely hate to see that happening.
One book which tells us the story of how Indian food has traveled around the world is Colin Taylor Sen's Curry, A Global History. Colin Taylor Sen is a food historian who has written many books on Indian cuisine, but this is a small book which tells how, and there is nothing called curry actually. It is a whole wide generic name of Indian gravy or stew dishes. This is, I think, a better definition of curry. But Colin Taylor Sen has written in this book about how these dishes of Indian dishes have traveled across the world. Not only in Britain and US, where we know it has traveled, but even in other places like, for example, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, but also in places where Indians had traveled as indentured laborers in 19th century, in Fiji, Mauritius, Maldives. And there is a different kind of Indian cuisine, because the cuisine also depends upon the geography, or what kind of ingredients the geography can give you. So it is a fascinating story of how the Indian dishes have traveled across the globe, in Southeast Asia, in Japan, for example. And anybody who wants to read about the influence of Indian food, the so-called soft power of India through the cuisine, should be very interested in this book, Curry, A Global History. Colin Taylor Sen has written a number of books, but I have only read this one. That, I think, is a very, very fascinating aspect of the Indian cuisine scene. All good things must come to an end. I take this opportunity to wish Pankaj the very best for her endeavors, and also to thank her for joining us in this show. The idea of the show, as you saw, was a very informal discussion about books and about a particular topic. Food, we think, is much more than food. Food, we think, is a part of our culture, which enables us to understand different cultures, which also enables us to see how cultures have moved across borders and across frontiers from one part of the world to the other. Thank you, Pankaj, for coming and gracing this occasion. And thank you, audience, for taking the patience and joining with us and giving the patronage for this show.
Thank you, Partha. Such a great pleasure to be here. And it was indeed a pleasure, believe me. For somebody who loves food, to be able to talk about food is always a great pleasure. And that is exactly what it was like for me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.